Welcome to Videopoem. We have an excellent guest this week. It's Maxine Margo Rubin, of the host of The Many Shades of Green. Hi, Maxine.
Hey, how are you, Bob? It's
Uh,
great to be here.
so awesome you could make it.
Finally, after the polar vortex has postponed this for many, many weeks. Every time we try to do this, it's like another storm
Uh,
has hit.
because there's no
Another
global warming.
No, there's no global warming. We've don't you know we roamed with the dinosaurs 6,000 years ago together?
What's all a liberal hoax, isn't it?
It's a liberal hoax, but according to Sarah Palin, my favorite person, we've roamed together with the dinosaurs at the same time
Well,
6,000 years ago.
I mean, she said it on Fox. It must
You
be
know,
true.
yes, if it's fair and balanced all the way,
Now this leads us up to Maxine's a host of a community radio station on Bebox. Why
Right.
don't you tell my fans a little bit about that?
Well, I've been doing a green directed environmental show on Bebox Radio in Brooklyn. We record in Dumbo, and it's a show trying to get a message out about the environment and issues that are not covered a lot by mainstream media because they seem to have dropped the ball about it. And so little stations, are taking, part in trying to get the word out. And my whole idea is to get people more proactive by getting guests who are making a difference in this.
Now, you've been doing it for what, not 3 years now?
Bebox, I was doing it at about 3 years almost in the summer, and I was before that.
And didn't it start in a railroad cart or something? Like it was like a Bebox?
Right. It started out that the founders of Bebox put in for a contest of making a radio station out of a freight train boxcar.
Right.
And they basically put together design and they said, here it is. They emailed it out, and lo and behold, they won. So they then had to make a radio station. Now, they all didn't have background in radio, architect and museum design and all those things. So they had to put a station together, and they needed shows.
Now, how did
you
you
know.
hear about them, or how did they hear about you?
I actually heard about them, strangely enough. I was at a coffee shop in Park, or somewhere in was it Greenpoint or Park Slope? I'm not sure. And all over the bulletin board, there was like these yellow Bebox signs. They're looking for people to submit shows. And I'm like, okay. I had done a show on a station up Dobbs Ferry at WDFH, which is now not there in its form that it was. And prior to that, I worked
That
at
was the Village Green or something?
I had Village Green on WDFH. You can kind of find shows somewhere in the cybersphere.
In the
Floating
polar
around.
vortex.
It's in the polar vortex,
If there's global warming, it'll
circling
melt and
around
come
the,
out.
the cosmos. It's out somewhere. Somewhere on another
Now
planet
you
now.
have you had a background a little bit with Air America, didn't you?
Yeah, I was at Air America for 4 years, working as a content producer and kind of part-time co-host on when they threw me in for a show called Green America, but we had to change the name through a whole long story. And so we changed the name to Money Message because it was about socially responsible investment, and then it sort of just lingered into social justice and other topics. So we'd have guests, from all different facets.
Now, have these always been concerns of yours? Like, how did you get into these issues, particularly?
Well, I grew up in Brooklyn. I grew up by the water, so I'm a major. I love the beach. I love the ocean, and just through going on nature walks with my mom in open, lots in Brooklyn, and she would say, "There's the milkweeds, and there's the thistles and the violets," and so it was always ingrained to me about the water and going in clean water at the time, because now you go into water in places you don't know what you're going into, and they're having a problem. I saw they're having the
Like
Olympics.
West Virginia, right, for instance?
West Virginia, the is a travesty. Again, 300,000 people without water, and they can't even shower. I mean, it's chemicals coming into the water.
And they still haven't fixed the problem, right?
No,
Aren't they
and
telling them just to go ahead and drink it anyway?
and they give it 2 minutes of airtime on on radio or television. It doesn't. Again, these topics that are so crucial to be understood by the public.
Now, was this
Mainstream
big
media
part of your
just
motivation to get into this alternative radio, or
Yeah, I
lack of a
mean,
better term?
I couldn't probably bring a green show, although I would like to now. Serious high, uh, to bring it out there, but I figure the grassroots level is where everything starts, and people are very comfortable coming into Dumbo, and I have some really cool people coming in. I mean, I've
Oh,
had
it's amazing, and you should tell them about your
you,
website where they
you
can
know,
find these guests. 'Cause
the
Maxine puts every show up on her website,
yeah,
Many Shades
the
of Green.
ManyShadesOfGreen.com is the website, and we have a Facebook page, the Many Shades of Green
And she's
Facebook.
also on iTunes. You can download the podcast.
Yes, I'm such a and I have a Twitter at TM Shades of Green. So tweet me, things, and I'd love to hear from you. Nice things, please. No things like tree hugger, get off the air. I don't want that. I mean, and I am a tree hugger, and I'm proud of it. And everyone else should be tree huggers, because there's a very big disconnect these days with getting out into nature, because everyone's doing this. You're at a table.
Well, just know when we came down here today, like a young woman was just whatever she's doing on the cell phone wouldn't get out of the road.
Right. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
they were crossing in the middle of the street in a major roadway
With the green light, by the
with,
way.
and going like this and not looking. So, we're like, I don't know. I just see a disconnect largely happening now with the influx of technology. People are just not
Well,
talking.
isn't it interesting? Because like never before have we had so many choices
Right.
to get information, and yet people tuning out more and more. And you were saying like how one of your motivations, how the mainstream media is just not covering any of these
Mm-hmm.
issues.
That was a big motivation to me, that I thought, it was important in whatever form I was doing to do my part to get people to be aware of what's happening. Okay, let me do this little radio show, see where it goes, and the choir is listening, and I'm trying to get past the choir
Why
now.
don't you talk about the wide spectrum of guests you've had on the show? Because it's really amazing the guests she has on and the depth of their knowledge. It spans everything.
Yeah, we have like amazing guests. I mean,
Like for instance,
I,
you had Peter Shapiro,
I
right?
had Peter Shapiro, who owns the Brooklyn Bowl,
And
he
now also the Capitol Theater.
and he redid the Capitol Theater. I heard it's beautiful, and he was on the show. And people go, why would you have Peter Shapiro on the show, who owns the Brooklyn Bowl? And he owned the wetlands before
I
that.
know.
Okay, and he used to use the wetlands as a place for young people to gather to talk about green issues. That was one reason he called it the wetlands. It was so he brought that to Brooklyn. He he bought over an old iron foundry building, and he converted it to a LEED certified building, which means that the lighting, the use of water, the use of air conditioning and heating, it's all done in a way that's high efficient energy wise. To the point where he has a bowling alley. That's why it's called Brooklyn Bowl. Uh, and even that is the first certified green bowling alley in the world,
Well,
because
it's an amazing bowling alley. It's also concerts going on at the same time.
the pins are on these some sort of string, so it's being swept. It's not being electronically taken
I didn't
away.
realize that there because
Right.
I've never actually bowled there. You can hear them.
Right. So the pins are on these strings, and they get swept away. And it was developed by an engineer in Japan. And so he got the he it is the greenest bowling alley because those pins, are being used, and also the efficiency of the way the ball return. And there's so many things that people wouldn't realize. And I told Peter, I said, you gotta make this more known when people walk into the building, because I've been there, and there's a little sign that says like a LEED building. I said, but you got to get it into the minds of the people who are going there, which is a younger crowd, and you would think that they're more apt to say, hey, here's some tips at home that you can do.
Yeah, that's
you
an
know,
excellent idea.
So
Did
I'm
he
gonna.
take you up on that, or?
I'm calling him out on it. I'm gonna check him out. I'm calling him back because
'Cause I go over there all the time. I'm gonna look at it.
see, I'm gonna call him. He's owed a phone call because he promised he was gonna like look into it, and I like to make people.
Well, it's interesting,
Give their
like
word.
like going through your website and seeing the diverse guests. It's interesting how like the green theme picks up in so many diverse ways.
Right. I mean,
Like for instance, like you had Dr. Susan Rubin on.
right. Dr. Susan Rubin is she's an activist, a gardener. She's a dentist by education, but she is teaching gardening, composting, and she's also an activist trying to get the Keystone Pipeline stopped. And she's went to Washington. She was arrested with Bill McKibben and all these amazing people for saying, "Hey, you
And
can't
he's
do this."
350.org, right? Didn't
350.org.
you have someone from his organization on
We
too, or
had May Bovey on. She is the assistant, the second in command over there, and it started. She went to Middlebury College, and that's how she met Bill McKibben. Bill McKibben was on our Air America show in like
'cause I was just
2008.
bringing that up how you get this wide diverse thread. Here you
Mm.
have a dentist
Right.
involved in posting, and then you have a rock and roll entrepreneur.
Right, which Susan also is a nutritionist and knows about backyard chickens, and she works. I think she's in charge of the community garden. There's a community garden in Chappaqua near the firehouse, and they
Which
have
firehouse? The one
the
downtown?
one downtown in the main part of town, and she's the head gardener there, and people have little plots. There's I don't know how many. If
Was
there's
it
20 or
across from the
30.
community center, or
No, it's actually by not the firehouse, but I mean
by the Greeley
the
House?
EMT, the down further down past the post office.
Oh, okay.
So there's a community garden
I
there
never
now.
realized there was one there.
Yes,
Because
and
we
she's
broadcast in Chappaqua too, so.
so she's in charge of the garden. She's amazing, and she's so active in trying to get people to stand up and take
Now, how do you go about
action.
finding your guests?
Uh,
Do they come to you? You come to
uh,
me kind of like word of mouth, a little bit of everything?
It's kind of word of mouth. It's kind of I'll spot an article and I'll go, hey, this is like really cool. Like I was at the 350.org do the math tour, and I was coming out, and I saw these kids, and they were so excited. They were high school, younger high school kids, and they were so excited about being able to go to this and partake in it. And then I walked over to the teacher and I said, who are you guys? I just happened to see the enthusiasm. She goes, we're Global Kids, which is
Oh,
a
I
huge,
listened to that. That was a great
which
show.
is a huge organization, taking kids from schools and giving the kids who are interested in getting an education in environmental sustainability. It's amazing. And these kids are so dedicated. And a lot of them are going to go on now to careers in environmental science.
Because you're getting them early enough too where their minds are open and they can make
Right,
a choice.
right. I mean, we had the Harbor School. There's an actual school, a New York City public school, dedicated to the harbor, marine biology.
Wow.
It's off on Governor's Island. That's
No
where the
kidding.
school is.
Okay.
The kids have to take a ferry to go there, and they use a pool in one of the schools in Brooklyn to learn scuba diving, and they do.
And if
They
they go
learn-
scuba diving out in the Hudson and the East River?
They actually send some of the kids to actual nice places, to go on scuba diving, to coral reefs.
Wow.
But they're also interested in the getting the oysters back in the bay in the rivers to help oxygenate them better, and these students are working on that program as well. And you go there, and it's they learn about boating. Some of these kids come out and they get jobs as like a tugboat captains, or they work skips on the rivers, or on the East River, the Hudson River. It's pretty amazing. And speaking of Hudson River, we've had Riverkeeper on. They're a big organization that is there to protect the Hudson.
Yeah, they've done a lot of great work.
And they've done great work. They also now are working to help clean up the Gowanus canals and the Newtown Creek in Brooklyn, two of the biggest Superfund sites in the
Yeah,
country.
people don't realize the pollution that's right there. I had a friend who read some book on it.
Mhm.
And there was like some book about how it got to be that way, and
Well, it was primarily, Standard Oil just leaking oil into the canals and just leaving it until now. It took a century almost for it to be brought out that, hey, this has to be cleaned up. And so Riverkeeper and Newtown Creek Alliance are working on that. And there's now the big thing for the kiddies, the millennial 20-somethings, is moving into Greenpoint. But they don't even know that not far from where they're living is this crazy
right.
site of pollution. And so they're trying to get that.
So you look at one of your roles as educating people.
Yeah,
gaining
I think
awareness.
education is key. We do a lot to try to work with organizations such as Global Kids and Harbor School and Newtown Creek and Riverkeeper to get get them to know
No,
what's
you had a
going on.
great quote from Thoreau that you were going to read. I think that kind of fits in right now.
Yeah, pardon my reading, but I was just, he's one of the greats. He was one of the gurus, one of the mentors of the environmental world, and he wrote Walden's Pond. He did an experiment. He lived out.
My favorite book on him is actually Cape Cod.
You know,
Did you ever see that one by him?
I didn't read that.
It's a
one,
great
no.
one of nuts. But anyway, let's hear the quote.
Yeah, he felt you had to get back to nature, live simply. I mean, what are you going to spend your money on if you don't, there's no connection to nature anymore. So, anyway, one of the quotes I thought was kind of pretty apropos was Henry David Thoreau saying, "How vain it is to sit down to write when you have not yet stood up to live." And that is so true. I mean, people, again, the nature is there, and people are just still in their own little worlds. They're over medicated, they're underemployed, and they're having all sorts
Well, I
of
read
problems.
this study from a Harvard person was saying how the average American's understanding of nature is either like it's like the 10 feet from their front door to their car, and then it's a passing thing, or it's on a bus or the train, so they don't have a connection with it, so they feel like it's something to be obliterated, not to be protected.
Yeah, it's when I had Global Kids on, one of the young ladies was they send kids to different parts of the world to learn about the environment there and how they can help. And she was down in South America somewhere, and there was someone who was talking about the earth. They had a circle, and he was talking about the connection to nature and how important that is, and that there was a disconnect, and it's just get in your brain, you need to be proactive in helping this. And he was telling some story, which I don't exactly remember, but she said it hit her and she just started to cry. Literally, that it's so important that she do what she's doing. And a light bulb went off, like, this is what I'm going to be
Wasn't
doing.
that like true of a lot of your guests? They have
know.
like a very strong passion. Like
Oh,
people
yeah.
are very dedicated.
There's a lot of dedicated. I mean, there's so many people out there who
I
do
mean, yourself
amazing.
very dedicated. You don't get
Yeah.
paid for doing this show.
No,
And by
I
the
mean,
way, if you need some sponsors, if you're watching this, beam
Yes.
in the manyshadesofgreen.com.
yes, we'll get you out into the green world, and
We'll put your banner up on our website. And
put the banner up, and we'll get you into the green world. I mean, my guests are just a wide spectrum, from Tiokasin Ghost Horse. Who,
oh, he's amazing.
Who
He's taking a year sabbatical.
was talking about the Lakota tribe and how the elders and Native Americans are the ones that need to be looked up to, and they're just the society at large ignores them. And
He's taught me so much about that from that perspective.
it's amazing. I mean, I've been having this conversation a lot lately about the
Because I got to tape him at the Left Forum last June.
Yeah, he's a force. He's a force of nature in and of himself.
I mean, all that knowledge, and he's such an incredible musician.
Yes, I know he's amazing. He's just I have to have him. I wanted him to play, but he won't come on to play. I don't know. Come on, Tiokasin, please. I've had Alan Weissman, who's coming up on the show soon. He wrote the World Without Us, which was a huge book in about 2007, 2008, and he wrote a new book called Countdown. But he wrote what the world would be, what would happen to New York and the U.S. and the world at large if humans just were eradicated suddenly, and what would happen to the planet. The planet would eventually be a lot better
Right,
off in the
without the
long
humans.
run.
Isn't that crazy?
But he's an amazing writer, and
Which is kind of interesting. Your guests come from like a wide field. You have writers, you have the nutritionists on, the
Right.
Teoxins and Indian activists.
Right, I had people who make
And now you broadcast, you tape on Wednesdays, right?
tape on Wednesdays in Dumbo. Anyone's
And then
free
they
to
can get
come
live
by.
at that moment, right?
You can come down to the studio and hang out and look at the window and wave. We'll get you some tea and.
And they stream it on bbox.com, correct?
bboxradio.com it's streamed, and then the show is up on iTunes podcast, and it's also on our website, the
manyshadesofgreen.com.
And so again, it's the amount of guests we get that have amazing stories and what they're doing to help. I mean,
Plus, a lot of them have great sense of humor too. Like you'll wind up laughing listening to shows, right?
Sometimes you get somebody.
I mean, I've
who's,
even been a guest on the show. I mean, don't
Yes.
let anybody on.
We let anyone on the show when we get. Bob came on. He was doing some poetry reading of some environmentally directed poetry as well, because he's a great poet. So I You read some, and then my co-producer Abba Carmichael read something, and Brian
And then you also had
Horowitz
the
is
young woman who was doing the jewelry or something, or the art was the guest for me or something.
which one?
Forget. She was she was doing like environmentally concerned artist,
There's a we had
like the chemicals she was using or something.
we've had a number of guests,
Because it's all
art,
interconnected, right?
artists.
Doesn't your show explore
Everything,
like how it's all interconnected?
everything's connected to the environment. How can it not be? I mean, from economics. We had someone from the Henry George School come on and talk about Henry George's philosophy and how it affects the economy now, and how important it is to have the economy
Because isn't that part of the
reflect.
problem? How people are so involved in themselves they don't realize the impact that they're having.
No, I mean, we try to get people to just uh, easy tips: shorter showers, keep your thermostat down.
We're even
Don't
talking about in the
drive
car
as
right now,
much.
like the biodegradable bags, right?
Right.
Like,
We want to start a Bag It. Bag It is a movie, but it's also a movement. And many places in the United States, Los Angeles is the major city to put plastic bag ban, or fees attached. The first time I saw it was in Washington D.C. when I went to a store. I was visiting my son, and I didn't have a bag to bring with me. And then they said, "Well, if you want a bag, it's going to be a dime. Otherwise, take all your stuff and hold it." And I'm like, "What?" And they go,
and of course, the
"No."
dime's gonna break the bank, right?
Right. So anyway, so of course I got a paper bag, whatever, and I said, "Wow, that's cutting down on plastic by a long stretch." Apparently, a lot of the plastic bags were going into river and canals, so some of the money is going to clean that up, and they're also getting revenue. But more people brought bags than you can imagine. People brought their own
Because
bags.
it's like small decisions like that add up to big consequences, don't they? And isn't that
Absolutely.
part of what your show's about, empowering the individual?
Right. I mean, things like using your own bag, you know, driving less, taking public transportation. I mean, New York City, we're in an area. And up here in Westchester, we have Metro North, we have bus lines. I mean, if you can avoid your car going into Manhattan, do it.
Or
I
even
mean,
carpool.
take more than one person, or, it's the things that we need to cut down our carbon footprint. And we all have a carbon
And isn't that,
footprint.
that part of the problem with the mainstream media? They don't echo that at all. They don't talk
No,
about that
I
at
mean,
all.
they had
They're like buy more cars,
a few.
etc.
Well, look at the advertising. Buy. Everything is consumers. I mean, after 9/11,
What didn't
President
Bush
Bush
say?
said,
Like,
"Go shopping."
yeah.
You know, that's how you're going to help the economy. Go shopping. Now, you know, having both of us been, in that horrible situation, and living through New York City at that time, it was, it was a nightmare. And just getting, go shopping was like, what? Okay.
But isn't like a part of the bomb too? Like even like President Obama, like clean coal. Like I was
There's no
watching.
such thing as clean
That's what I'm
coal.
saying. I was watching a
Is a joke.
documentary.
There's no clean coal. What were they fooling? And now the pipelines and the liquefied natural gas, they want to put a liquefied natural gas, and I've had Claire of Sane Energy Project. She's also amazing. And there's so many groups of dedicated people trying to get things stopped. They want to build it off of Long Beach and off Reese Park in Brooklyn through Marine Park, and you could be sitting on Reese Beach, and there could be a gas pipeline under your butt.
What they
That's
don't
where
realize
I
too is
want to
like the
be.
fracking thing.
I
Like
called it Gasnado instead of
oh, that's a good
Sharknado.
term.
Gasnado coming to a place near you.
Maxine could have been a comedian if she didn't go into this
I don't know.
field.
I was going to try, but the one point I want to say about the liquefied natural gas is it's going to be actually exported.
That's what I was gonna say, and also with the fracking and stuff
Right.
doesn't
It's not
get us
coming here.
and doesn't create jobs. Like the
No.
jobs are maybe in the media, but then it goes away.
No. Some of the key jobs being created by these fracking things are these guys coming in, staying in the hotels, going to the bar, and prostitutes.
So
Thank
that's
you.
why it's important. Like your show and stuff to educate people on this because they don't know. They listen to Fox. They just think it.
If you're just listening to Fox, there is a definite, you know, I don't even know what to say about that. I can't
But
even.
even the other stations are like on MSNBC is a little bit more liberal, but still they're still
None of
taking the
them-
corporate dollar for their
Yeah.
advertising.
Right. And they're not focusing. They themselves should be greener. I mean, I had a young lady. I had, well, Eva Eva Radke of Film Big Recycling. She was a set designer, and she noticed she would do commercial for commercials and films and television. And she would set design, and then they would strike the set and throw everything out. Brand new couches, brand new tables. People can use that stuff. So she's walking by and she goes, "This is absurd. Someone's got to do something, and I'm really mad." She started Film Biz Recycling, where now she gets all the sets. The last set she's gotten were from, I think, 30 Rock and Gossip Girl, and I forgot which film, but and she has a warehouse in
Well,
Gowanus
that's what I
in
like
Brooklyn.
about a lot of your guests to
Yeah.
make these choices and stuff. Unfortunately, we're running out of time.
Oh,
So,
wow.
some final thoughts about the bigger picture, where it
Well,
wants to go.
the
We'll have to have you back on. It's like gonna, it's such little time to talk about such an amazing.
kind of flies by, but basically it's just getting the word out and having people, listen to shows like yours and mine and get information
Because
about
when
it.
people hear about it, don't you find that they're really interested?
Yes, I've had
They're not against it.
no, I mean I've had Rock and Wrap It Up, sit on. They take food from concerts and they distribute it to
You also had the Reverend Billy.
Rev Billy. I mean, we can go on and on. I've had I have hundreds of guests on already. I didn't even realize. So getting the word out, being proactive, doing something yourself, even if it's one thing. If it's recycling and throwing it into the right stream, to the bottles, cans, whatever. If it's lowering your
Because
thermostat.
as an individual, you really can have an impact
You
in this.
can have an impact yourself, and that's what I want to get out there. I want people to realize this is not a joke. This is real. Climate change is happening. Look at this last winter we had. And if you think, ho, 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 it's been cold, there's no global warming, well, guess where that's coming from? The Arctic is melting, sea levels are rising, temperatures are rising, and Mother Nature's pissed off.
Okay, so that's the manyshadesofgreen.com. Make sure you go there.
Right.
bbox.com if you want to hear it live. And thank you so much, Maxine.
Thank you.
Great.
It's been a pleasure.